Now we got to talk about Group A, Nico. Germany, Hungary, Scotland, Switzerland will be in this group. Kind of a similar vibe as Italy there when it comes to Germany. Some high expectations, some unlucky results over the last few years. What kind of stands out to you about this group?
They're the hosts, and not too many people have been talking about the hosts like they have other nations. Say France, the Netherlands, England. Watch out with Germany. That's all I'm saying.
Watch out for Germany. Well, someone who watches out for Germany all the time is our good friend Raphael Honigstein, joining us to discuss Germany's outlook ahead of the tournament. Rafa, thanks for hanging out with us here on Box to Box. We got to keep it real here when it's come to Germany and international play. It's maybe not been up to the expectations that we're used to seeing. They had that huge World Cup win against Brazil a few years ago and have kind of been iffy ever since. So going into this tournament, what's the vibe? What's the expectation for the hosts, as Nico pointed out?
Yeah, I mean, it's 10 years since we had a really strong tournament, or maybe 8 if you count Euro 2016. So it's about time that Germany showed up again. The last two World Cups were atrocious. The Euros wasn't really good either. That's dampened expectations a little bit. At the same time, everyone's thinking about 2006 and the good times we had, and a very unfancied young German side went all the way to the semi-final, and the whole country was excited and swept along in this wave of patriotism. And I think people are somehow secretly, if they're not maybe admitting it, hoping that history will repeat itself. I think we're actually in a better spot than we were going into the tournament 2006. This is a team full of Champions League winners, full of players who play at the best teams in the world and the best leagues in the world. There is no reason why this team shouldn't have a decent Euros. And by decent, I mean quarterfinals at the minimum stage. I think if they don't make it any further, supporters would probably forgive them. But if they don't get there, then it would be seen as a huge failure. So we have a sort of narrow window, I think, what is considered acceptable and at the same time realistic.
Rafa, what's the talk around Julian Nagelsmann and this team in Germany? Because it feels like from the Anglo side of things, we tend to focus on the World Cup runners-up in France, England. But Germany, for some reason, even as hosts, don't get spoken too much. But from the German side of things, what's the talk and the expectations and the pressure put on this team over there?
I don't think too many people see them as favorites. They see them as contenders. The hosts tend to be strong in all competitions. It is Germany, a nation that used to pride itself about being a tournament team, Turniermannschaft, a team that kind of comes alive when big tournaments start. But against that, you have the recent disappointments. You have 2 friendlies last week that didn't go so well. 0-0 against Ukraine, Germany were good. 2-1 against Greece, Germany were pretty bad, and they're lucky to win that game against a side that didn't qualify for the Euros. So I think there is scope for both optimism and pessimism. Pessimism because of the recent past, optimism because of Germany's history as a team that tend to do really well in big competitions, especially at home. 1988 they had a decent Euros, and of course 1974 they won it, and 2006 they went to the semi-final. So I think without really admitting it, Germans think that this team has a chance. But they're not, as you're alluding to, they're not being talked about in the same breath like the real contenders. Nobody thinks that, this is a Germany team that can go all the way or should go all the way. It's very much couched within, let's hope that things kind of come together and fall into place, but we're not quite sure if they will, because we've been so poor in the last 8 years or so.
Rafa, if you could help me make sense of something that I read. It's obviously translated because I don't speak German, but it's another Ilkay Gundogan statement. I'm pretty sure it was to Bild, if I'm not mistaken. We've seen him talk very publicly, very mature, with a lot of confidence and own this responsibility that he, as one of the experienced players, knows that he has that burden to carry, right? He mentioned that the younger players, like a Musiala, like a Florian Wirtz, he has to adapt to them and not them to the team because of his experience and whatnot. Can you help shed some light about Ilkay Gundogan's words and his role on the national team?
Yeah, first of all, he's the captain, and he's the first captain in a Germany national team that has a migratory background, as you know from his name and where he's from. He has Turkish ancestry, and that is a big deal. But it also, unfortunately, in a strange way, increases the pressure on him, because there's still people who don't quite see him as fully German. There's racism, there's xenophobia, and as a captain, he's not untouchable for also sporting reasons. He's been a little bit, shall we say, mediocre in recent weeks. And I think what he's trying to say, and he is the loveliest, smartest man you can ever talk to, is that these guys are so good that he, even though he is the captain, he will have to find a way to adapt his game to them, because they are young, they're doing their thing, and he needs to almost take a step back and let them do their thing. And because Germany's midfield is a little bit lopsided, you have one holding midfielder, Robert Andrich, and then you have kind of 4 number 10s, if you think about it. I mean, Toni Kroos, of course, plays in deeper position, but in terms of his actual role, he's a playmaker. İlkay Gündoğan plays a little bit further up, but he is the playmaker. Then you have Wirtz and Musiala, they're 2 number 10s. So you have 4 number 10s, really. And I think what Gündoğan is trying to say is that as one of the most experienced guys, along with Kroos, it's not down to the young kids to make this work. It's down to him. And if that means being perhaps a little bit less showy, a little bit more geared towards making the collective work, then he will do that job. And I think it's a real, genuine reflection of how he sees football, and just what a nice and unassuming guy he is, with huge talent, who doesn't always get the plaudits and the recognition that his talent deserves.
Rafa, when you look at this German squad here on the screen, who stands out to you here as a potential leader? I mean, you got Toni Kroos playing in his final tournament with the team. What are the expectations when you see this roster?
I mean, it's a good squad. There's quality throughout. There's players who've won the Champions League with Man City, with Bayern Munich, with Real Madrid. There's players like Kai Havertz, who plays at the highest level in the Premier League and has come really good. So, as I said earlier, there's no reason why this team shouldn't be confident, competent, and actually putting in a good spell. When it comes to the leadership at the back, Antonio Rudiger, I think, is a huge player. He's grown as a figure playing for Real Madrid. You have Kimmich, who's going to play as right back, who's one of the leaders in the team. You have Toni Kroos, his experience, his calmness on the ball is unparalleled. You have Gündoğan with his quiet leadership, if you will. And then you need some of the younger kids to really step up. You need Wirtz and Musiala, and also Kai Havertz, to maybe not be loud, because it's not really their game to start shouting at people or making tackles to intimidate the opposition, but to step up in terms of performing. You can lead by performing well, by helping your teammates, by covering back, by giving Germany that balance that they've been missing in recent years. We've gone into big tournaments with good quality up front, with real good players. We have Sané, we have Gnabry, who didn't even make the cut this time. We have Müller, of course, still there. But we didn't have the balance in midfield. And often there were 2 teams, an attacking part and a defensive part. We need to come together and find that cohesion that this Germany team in the last few years have been missing. And the responsibility is not just one or two leaders, but on the whole squad to make this happen. And I think Julian Nagelsmann has worked very hard in trying to instilling that team mentality, which has been missing in recent years.
You kind of answered my next question. I was going to ask you if there was one guy to stand out in a performance, who would you want to carry Germany? And it seems like you would say it's more a matter of the collective. But, Rafa, entertain me. If there was one guy that you would want to have that tournament to say, all right, he can lead Germany through this, who would it be?
Well, different guys will have to do different things in terms of, I think, catching the eye, in terms of scoring the goals, in terms of making things happen and being kind of the star. I think it is set up for you, Jamal Musiala, to really shine. I mean, he came very close in the World Cup. He had all these chances. He was so unlucky, hit the post, all these unbelievable saves. And I think he's getting closer and closer. And with Gündoğan around him, with Havertz around him, with Wirtz around him, with Toni Kroos behind him, I think the platform is set to see the best of Jamal Musiala. And if he only gets his potential onto the pitch and finds the end product that sometimes has been missing, I think he's got all the hallmarks of a superstar. And I hope for his sake and for Germany that he will actually take that next step and really shine for this Germany team and become the main difference maker in a side that has quality, but I think has vacancy for a real superstar up front.
Rafa, we so appreciate you hopping on Box to Box with us. A lot of expectations for this German side, but we will keep our eye as they get the tournament started this weekend. Thanks. All right.
Thank you.